and welcome back to another episode of the Knitting Jungle podcast. In case you're new here, hello, my name is Sarah. I live right outside Boston, Massachusetts, and this is a podcast where I like to talk about everything that I've been knitting on recently. I mostly do hand knitting, but I also like to do machine knitting, sewing, and crochet. I have a lot of projects to share with you today, so make sure to buckle up with your whip and let's get started. As always, I'll put all the information about the patterns and yarn that I'm using up here on the screen and down in the description box. And if you need to skip around to the different projects, I put chapters in there as well. So my first finished object that I'll show you today is the Miles shirt jacket by Ozetta. And if you saw my last episode, I had done everything except the button band, the collar, and the sleeve. So I guess I had just done the body, and it was going well. And let me tell you a little bit about this project in case you didn't see my last episode. So I intended this to be kind of a scrap busting project. I have a lot of leftover Letlopi yarn, the Icelandic rustic worsted weight yarn. And I also had a bunch, not a bunch, but maybe like 3 skeins of yarn from my local farm called Drumlin Farm. And I wanted to use all of them and make kind of a patchwork style Miles shirt jacket. And I think the result is really fun and cozy and has all these beautiful naturalish sheepy colors that I think just scream fall weather to me. So this pattern comes in 9 sizes and it's intended to be made on a 6mm needle with worsted weight yarn. And actually the yarn is an unspun yarn called Manchalopes. And the yarn I use that's local to me is actually a single ply, very loosely spun yarn. So I thought that would be perfect for this project, and I thought it would probably give a similar look to the example sweater in Ozetta's pattern page. So this is definitely going to be perfect for winter. The Letlopi yarn is very rustic, probably itchy to most people. And I actually held it double because I wanted a very, very tight gauge and very little wind seeping in. And for that reason, I also went down to needle size to make sure the stitches were really, really tight and close together. So instead of a 6mm needle with a 15 stitch gauge, I used a 5mm needle, and I forget exactly the gauge, but it's definitely smaller than the intended gauge. I made the second smallest size, I think, because it has a very oversized fit, and I thought this would probably be good enough. And then I didn't have that much of the Drumlin Farm yarn, so I wanted to be conservative for that reason and make the smallest size possible that I thought I could get away with. This kind of barely fits around my hips. I think the finished circumference is probably 43 inches, and my hip circumference is like a 41.5. So what I did to counteract that was to make sure the button band didn't overlap, and so then I was able to gain 1 inch on each side of the button band and add that to the width. I think I should have definitely sized up to a medium since I did go down needle size and gauge. But this is kind of a scrappy project. I'm not expecting it to be like the most perfectly fitting tailored garment. It's kind of has a nice relaxed, not sloppy, but you know, like an oversized, relaxed, scrappy fit. So overall, I'm okay with it. So I've never knit with Letlopi before because it's very itchy to me. Normally, non-superwash wools, rustic wools don't really bother me, but this one definitely is the itchiest of all of them. And it doesn't really bother me. I can definitely feel it, but after I blocked it, it did soften up significantly, like maybe 25% softer. But then what it also did after blocking was it made all of these little guard hairs poof up and appear. Like maybe when I had knitted it, they were all flat and down, and then after blocking it, I don't know if you can see, but all these little guard hairs are definitely standing to attention. And I think if I wore this outside when it was snowing, the snowflakes would catch on all these little guard hairs and look really cool. So I definitely have to try that out in a few months, maybe once the 80-degree weather settles down here. Also with the Letlopi yarn, some of the colors are definitely softer than others, so I'm assuming that's part of the dye process. I can't really predict which colors are going to be softer, but I will tell you that this darker brown color here that I used is probably the roughest color, and then this medium gray color is one of the softer colors. So I don't know, maybe this is maybe one of the more natural sheep colors and that's why it's softer. But also some of these yarns I've had in my stash for between 5 and 10 years. I used to use this just to make little knitted toys, and so I had a bunch of these in different colors, and I held them double so that I could work through all of them. Anyways, and the Drumlin Farm yarn, you can only probably get this if you're in Massachusetts. They don't ship their yarns, but this is so soft. I said in my previous episode that I was originally going to make felted slippers out of this Drumlin Farm yarn, but the yarn was so beautiful. Like, look at all these colors in there, that I frogged the slipper and decided I cannot felt this yarn. It's too beautiful. And so that's where the idea for starting this project began. So this is knitted top down, and one nice thing about making it in this patchwork color scheme is that I can show you exactly how you make it. So the first thing you do is this back panel here, and you start off up here, and then you make some increases on the sides, and then knit straight without any increases until this is like the bottom of the armpit. After you do the back panel, you start working on the front section. So you pick up stitches along this shoulder edge. This is the back panel, so you pick up stitches here along the back panel's shoulder edge, and you knit this one front, and then you do the same over here, and then you join the back panel and the two front sections into one big flat piece, and then the whole body is just knitted flat all the way down. And when you get towards, here's the side, I guess like the side seam area, it has this really cool curved shaping here at the hem. So it happens right before you start this hem is when you do short row shaping to create this beautiful curve. So you do it one section at a time. So you do the short row shaping for this, then I think you do the back panel, and then you migrate over to the other front section here. And then when you finish the short row shaping, you go directly into the hem. And I think I did a 3x1 ribbed hem just to change it up. I was tired of doing 1x1, so I think I did a 3x1. You can't even tell because it's a pretty dark yarn. Oh no, I think I did a 2x1 because here on the sleeve, I think it's pretty clearly a 2x1. And that looks cool. Only a knitter would notice that type of thing. Okay, after you finish the body, I think I wet blocked it because this was curling up so bad, and I basically ran out. This was a whole yarn chicken situation, but by the time I finished the body, I knew it was going to be a pretty tight squeeze to get all the hems and the sleeves finished without running out of yarn, because I had a very specific color scheme in mind. Like, I wanted more, I needed to save more white for the sleeve. I needed to save enough gray for the hems of both the sleeves. So I did finish the body where it told me to, but in my opinion, it's a little too short for me. I don't know, like medium tall. I'm 5'7", and where it hits me now, I think is not the most flattering spot. I think if it was maybe 3 or 4 inches longer, that would be perfect. So what I might do in the future, I don't know, I'm probably gonna be too lazy to do this, but to fix that, what I would do is take out the hem or maybe just take off the cast off edge of the hem and knit that like really long, like 4 more inches. And I think that would solve that problem without having to rip back in the main body of the sweater with all the short rows and everything. I think I would just extend the hem really, really long until I reach the desired length. So yeah, I don't think I'm gonna actually do that, but that's what I would do if I really wanted to fix this. So after you do the body, you pick up stitches for the sleeves, and I think I picked up 8 stitches too many. I did not follow the pattern very closely for this, so I'm sorry that this is a very bad review for the pattern. But the pattern itself is really well written, very clear, and maybe that's why I didn't follow it, because I was like, oh, okay, it's so easy, I can kind of just figure it out. So I think the sleeves are a little too big, but again, I think it's fine. And when I ran out of brown, this was supposed to be one big brown section here for the sleeves, but I ran out of the Drumlin Farm brown here, so then I used 2 different Let Lopi browns to kind of fill it in, and I tried to make this section of the brown sleeve the same length as the brown section of the body, so that when I was wearing it, it would look, oh, that doesn't look, oh wait, hold on. So it kind of fall at the same, see how this chunk of brown falls at the same location as the body chunk of brown, and same with the white. So I think that worked. Where was I? Okay, so then every some amount of rounds you do decreases on the sleeves, and then I did this 2x1 ribbing for the hem. And I knitted the sleeves so they ended here, and then I blocked them to gain like 5 inches, because like I was saying, I was really playing yarn chicken, so that really worked. Luckily I stretched the sleeves and got a nice long length on those. And then you do the button band, and I didn't follow the instructions for that either. When I do button bands, I really don't like to do, usually in patterns you make one side of the button band the side with the holes in it, and then afterwards do the side that's kind of blank, and then you put the buttons in according to where you've already knit the buttonholes. And I really don't like that, because it's very scary to me to just trust the pattern to put the buttonholes exactly where they're going to be perfect on your body. Like, what if it's right at the largest point of your bust and it's going to have a giant gap, for example? You don't know what it's going to be until after you block it and try it on. So what I usually like to do is knit the side with the buttons themselves, sew the buttons on, and then do the side for the holes, and that way I know exactly where to put that hole based on where I've already tried on the sweater with the buttons to know exactly what's going to be a flattering fit for me. I hope that makes sense. But actually what I did here was I did nothing at all. I just knit 2 plain button bands with no holes and no buttons. Then afterwards I sewed these toggle buttons to the center of one of the button band sides, and then instead of buttonholes I did a little crochet chain to be the securing mechanism for those toggles. And that worked out well, and I was able to do everything after the fact without any real planning during the button band knitting phase, if that makes sense. And I like how that looks. I think these toggle buttons are really cute and add to this rustic cabin sweater kind of charm there. So I really like those, and I chose 4 of them. There's 4 in the pattern, and I thought I could get away with 3, but I did 4 just in case. Oh, and the pockets. Oh, so this is very smart. In the pattern, they have you make a pocket as your gauge swatch, and I didn't read, like I said, I was really bad about reading this pattern, so I missed that part, and so I just did it later on. And I think what you're supposed to do is knit the pocket and then sew it on. But what I did is I picked up stitches at the bottom of the pocket with a crochet hook. I just jabbed my crochet hook under and had a ball of yarn underneath, and I picked up loops with my crochet hook and then put those on a knitting needle and just knit this pocket bottom up, and then I sewed the 2 sides of the pocket down at the end, and then I did a little 2x1 rib here at the very top. Wow, this pocket looks pretty invisible, which is what I wanted. So I thought it wouldn't be a good idea to have this pocket a different color, because there's already so many colors going on here. So what I did was I just tried to match the pocket with whatever was going on in the background. So I changed it to brown when the body changed to brown. And similar thing on this side. So I think that's a nice seamless pocket. I didn't want the pocket to draw attention away from the patchwork. Just kind of looks like that. And I'm really happy with how those pockets turned out. And let's see what else. And then the very last thing you do is the collar. So you have to do the button bands before the collar because you're going to pick up stitches at the top of the button band and incorporate that into the collar. And this collar is really nice and thick. It's knitted extra long and then folded over, so it's a double thickness knit here. And then I think you do maybe, I already finished this a month ago, so I can't remember what I did. I think I probably just cast off regularly and then sewed it down, but you could pick up stitches from the row, the very first row. Here, this is the inside I'm showing you here. You could pick up stitches from the first row and knit 2 together all along. Maybe that's what I did. I really can't tell because this yarn has become so fuzzy and I'm not that good at reading knitting that's not just straight stockinette or colorwork or anything like that. But either way I think is fine. And then you just have to, this is the edge here of the collar, then you just have to, since you folded it over, it's going to be open here. So then you just seam this little edge closed here. And when you do this, make sure to sew this really, really loosely because it's such a thick knit that if you knit that little seam tightly, it's gonna get too squished and squeezed. And if you want to maintain that nice plump look, just make sure to sew that nice and loosely so it stays nice and chunky there. Yeah. So I think that's all I have to say about this. I think it was maybe a B+ success. I definitely executed my patchwork plan. I got rid of a bunch of scrap yarn. The fit is, drop shoulders don't look good on me, but that can't be helped. I mean, it's my fault I chose a drop shoulder pattern, but this is, I'm not trying to be like looking that good while wearing this, so I think that's okay. And then the length I think would be more flattering if it was longer as well. This is gonna be so warm. I'm already sweating just holding this. So I think come January, this is gonna be perfect. Okay, so I really was actually sweating, so I had to change it back into a summer outfit because my next finished object is even hotter than the last. So this, will have also seen me start on my last episode. This is the zipper sweater by PetiteKnit. And this just turned out really perfectly. So my vision with this was to make an elevated, upscale, natural fiber version of my workout zipper jacket that I like to wear over leggings and, you know, just casually walking around, going on hikes and everything. And so the one that I always wear all the time is made out of plastic, and I thought it'd be really nice, since I know how to knit, to make one in wool or natural fibers. So I chose the zipper pattern by PetiteKnit, and she has lots of projects on Ravelry, so I think this pattern is really well written and a lot of people on Ravelry will probably agree with that. It comes in 9 sizes and her sample is knit in an Aran weight yarn, and it has a 15 stitch gauge on 5mm needles. For mine, I used 4.5mm needles because I wanted a less drapey and more tightly knitted fabric to counteract any wind blowing through. And I think I'm really happy with this gauge. Normally I think I would have made the size large, but since I went down a little bit in the needle size, I went with the size XL, I think it's the 5th size. And I'm very happy with the fit. It's very oversized and cozy and cute, and I think this is just perfect for fall. And what I did here was I wanted to experiment with using different textured yarns. So hopefully you can see here, this whole brown section is very fuzzy, and then here is like a nice crisp merino yarn that I use for the contrast. And this is a natural worsted merino yarn from Coast to Coast Yarn Company, and this is in the color Pigeon Milk. I know for sure they're out of this right now, but if you can ever get your hands on it, this is so soft and it's very tightly spun and it's not pilling at all. So if I ever get the opportunity to get that yarn again, even in a different colorway. I think I would love to make a very luxurious sweater out of this yarn here. And yeah, so I did want to do a contrasting color because I thought, I've seen a lot of store-bought zipper sweaters have this cool contrast up here at the collar and down the zip, the pockets, which I kind of self-drafted the pockets, and then the two hems I did all in the contrast color. I think I only needed 2 balls of this worsted weight merino yarn. If you can't get this, another alternative would be Sadness Garn Sunday, or Double Sunday, sorry, and the color Almond is very similar to this. And that yarn in general is like a very sturdy, soft merino. I think that would be a good alternative. And then for the brown part, it's actually a camel yarn held with a silk mohair by Isair. And Isair silk mohair is the only one I don't find itchy, so unfortunately I had to splurge a little bit with that and use that. So this is not itchy at all. And the camel yarn is really, really soft as well. I'm assuming it's similar to alpaca because those animals are kind of related. And the camel did grow a little bit with blocking just like alpaca, but the silk mohair kind of helps to not make it grow out of control. So I am glad I used both in this very luxurious sweater, which I've tried to wear one day where it's only 75 degrees and I was able to wear it for like 20 minutes and then it got too hot. So there's a bit of a learning curve because my old zipper, polyester zipper jacket, I can wear even when it's like 75, 80 degrees out and I don't get too hot, but this is so warm. The camel, the mohair, it just creates a beautiful warm material that I just can't wait to test out when it actually gets cold. Okay, so let's talk about the construction a little bit. So you start here at the funnel neck. Yeah, it's like kind of a stand-up collar, I guess. And you knit a big rectangle in half twisted rib, so twisted knit stitches on the right side, and then on the wrong side it's twisted purl stitches. Then when you finish that, which took quite a while, you fold it in half and knit it down, like knit 2 together probably, and then you start the body of the sweater. And this is made with raglan increases, which is one of the most flattering shapes on me, at least. So that's why I picked this. There's a lot of other zipper sweaters out there that have a drop shoulder, but drop shoulder just looks bad on me. So I love the shape of this raglan sleeve. And you knit this flat until the bottom of this zipper facing area here. And then you can start knitting in the round for the rest of the body. And I kind of did an intarsia situation here where the very last few stitches of each round before I turned it had to be in this contrasting color because I thought it would look really cool to have this just carried down and then going a little bit below where the zipper ends. Oh, and look, I think I did a really good job putting in this zipper. I took some video about how I did that because before I started knitting garments, I was sewing clothes for several years, so I've done dozens and dozens of zippers on my sewing machine, and that's how I did this one. And maybe I'll show a little bit about how I did that. So before I knit the sleeves and finish the body, I put in the zipper just so I could make sure it was gonna go well, basically. So I think I wouldn't be able to make a good guess about how long to make the body or the sleeves until I have this whole top part fitting exactly how it's going to be fitting in the final product. So this is how I do my zippers on the sewing machine with fabric, like not knitted garments. So what I do first is I open up the zipper and I pin the zipper to just the front facing, so behind the front facing, and then I loosely baste it in with a very, very long stitch. And you can do this on the knitting machine or just by hand, and that will just get it in place with kind of a temporary stitch, and that's easy to take out if you don't like how it looks. And then you could zip it up and see if it looks good with just your basting stitches and make sure it's laying flat and everything. And then if it does look good, then you keep the basting stitches in and sew it down permanently. And those basting stitches not only help you figure out the fit right from the start, but they help keep the zipper in place while you're sewing, so things don't start getting stretched out of place or anything. And then once I sewed it permanently to just the front facing, I zipped it up again and made sure it looked good. And then I secured the back facing to the back of the zipper. And I did the same thing. I basted it in place first just to make sure, zipped it again, constantly test the zipper throughout the whole time to make sure the zipper is still laying flat and everything. And then I stitched it permanently to the back side of the zipper. And when I was sewing it, I sewed it as close to the zipper teeth as I could to kind of tack down or felt down this very edge stitch row of the knitting. And that's to make sure that the fibers of the yarn aren't going to get caught in those zipper teeth. Oh, and one thing I did was I did the back facing on my knitting machine, which was awesome because who wants to do that? And the knitting machine does plain stockinette better than anything, and that's like its bread and butter. So that's definitely what I did. And one thing I thought that was good, okay, so here's the back facing. And since I had to do this weird intarsia thing, I had a lot of caught yarn floats kind of in the back. So I made the facing, I think original facing ends here, but I made my facing a bit wider to cover all the weird stuff that was going on here when I was switching between the brown and the cream colored yarns. So there are these stitches on hold here from when you finish making the collar, and I put these stitches on my knitting machine and cast on a few more just to make this maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe like 9 or 10 stitches wide. And then I knit, I don't know, however many amount of rows, and then I cast off and then join those two facings. This is the wrong side of the sweater now. Then I just join it into kind of a rectangular shape down here. And that worked out perfectly. I was very pleased because this whole thing would be ruined if the zipper looked bad, in my opinion. Like if it was wonky, or, you know, it's all about the zipper here. And then, oh, one thing that's good, since I made the back facing wider, when I wear this open, I wear the open like this a lot, it looks better. Like you can see there's no weird floats, and it just has a nice, somewhat tidy edge here when I wear it open. And if I wear it open a little bit less, then you can't even see the brown inside at all. It just looks like the whole inside is this cream color. So yeah, that's it. And then, oh, for the body rim is also twisted rib, and I accidentally used a 4.5 millimeter for that instead of going down to a 4 or 3.5 millimeter, because the body was also in a 4.5 millimeter needle. But I think that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. And then I just continued with the sleeves. Oh, I was also playing yarn chicken with this, I remember, because I was almost out of the camel yarn. So I also knit these sleeves a bit short, maybe here. And then these, I blocked like 6 inches. The camel yarn grew a lot. So that was great because I like a nice long sleeve in case you need to use it like mittens. And that all worked out. And then twisted rib for the cuff here. And then I really wanted pockets because you can't have a zipper jacket without pockets. And there are no pockets in the pattern. So I went on Ravelry to see everybody's patterns, and I went through many patterns. I don't think I saw anyone make pockets because I was looking for ideas about how other people did it. So then I just had to figure it out myself. So I thought it would be nice to have a diagonal pocket to kind of mimic the angle of the diagonal raglan shaping. So I did the same thing that I did on the Miles shirt jacket. I picked up stitches right here at the very bottom of the hem with a crochet hook, and then put those stitches onto a double pointed needle. And I knit this flat. Oh, before I did that, sorry. I put the jacket on and I marked out with thread where I wanted the pockets to be, and then I put the jacket on to make sure it looked good. And then I kind of pretend to put my hands in the pockets to make sure it was an ergonomic pocket placement. And then once I had that figured out, I just knit it from the bottom up while referencing those orange stitch guidelines. And then when it was time to start decreases, to make this diagonal shape, I did a decrease every other row, just decrease one stitch every other row until I got to the top of where I thought the pocket would be. And then I did kind of a Kitchener's stitch between the live stitches of the pocket and the finished stitches of the body. I don't know if it's called Kitchener's stitch, but it's some type of grafting stitch. And that looks pretty good. And then I picked up stitches with the contrast yarn to do a twisted rib pocket bag hem thing. And it fits my phone, fits my hand perfectly, and it lays nice and flat. So that was also a success. I couldn't believe I had enough yarn to do those pockets. Oh, and then guess what? After I finished the whole sweater, I found an extra skein of that camel yarn. So I don't know where that was the whole time, but I was basically panicked for nothing the entire time. So perfect. A few things I forgot to mention. The camel yarn is a DK weight yarn from Ula plus Leah. It's their natural baby camel color. And then the silk mohair I used by Esair is number 63. And then the zipper I used, I know PetiteKnit sells their own zippers, but I really wanted a matching cream zipper. So this one is a very high quality YKK zipper that I got from the website called Wawak. I don't know how you say that, but it's where I get all my sewing notions from. And I just trimmed this, after I sewed the zipper in, I just trimmed the length. And then I sew a few stitches around the very bottom of the zipper teeth. But also when you put the back facing on over the bottom of the zipper, it's probably not gonna fly off anyways, but just in case. And I think that's all I have to say about that. I highly recommend this pattern. I really want to try this on my husband because this is humongous on me, and he also loves this style of zipper jacket, so maybe I could make him one as well. I don't know if you can see, but there are these two little cats in the background here, and they really want me to talk about them, but I'm not quite ready yet. So let's go on to my next finished object, which is this beautiful pair of mittens. So after I finished those two giant heavy sweaters, I really wanted to start some work on winter accessories for my family. So this is going to be for my older daughter. She's 7 years old, but she's pretty tall for her age, and she has pretty big hands and feet. I have giant hands. These almost fit me. Yeah, they pretty much do. So I'm pretty sure she'll be able to wear these until she's full size. So that's good. I don't have to make this again. And wow, these look so good. It really is popping on camera. So instead of admiring them, let me tell you a little bit more about this pattern. So these mittens are from the book called Magnificent Mittens, and then there are some bonus sock patterns in this version. And this is by Anna Zielburg. And I don't really recommend this book. There were a lot of mistakes in just this one pattern, and a lot of it was unclear, complicated, and just plain wrong in some spots. So if you like to make mittens, I would recommend this book for the charts and then just ignore all of the instructions, because I probably spent at least 2 hours trying to figure out how to make these top-down mittens work when I should have just done bottom-up. And then this thumb is made separately and then grafted on. So so I guess I'll talk about the construction, then I'll complain a little bit more about the pattern later. So you do a provisional cast on, where you cast on onto 2 needles, live stitches. But even the cast on I didn't understand for about 30 minutes, because they said to cast on a certain amount of stitches, and then the chart had a different amount of stitches. And then even when you doubled that number to put on 2 different needles, it didn't match up either. So right from the get-go, it was an absolute disaster. But I can't believe I got there in the end. Okay, anyway, so you start with 2 live needles, and then you knit a little rectangle, and then you pick up stitches on the 2 selvage edges, I guess you would call it, and then that makes a little square with 4 double pointed knitting needles. And then you can continue in the round all the way down to the thumb. Then you put this aside and you start the thumb in the same way, which is so dumb. I hate picking up or increasing stitches on these little needles. It's so much easier to knit 2 together or do like decreasing stitches rather than picking up stitches from who knows where to get your increased shape correctly. So I'm never doing that again. I hope this review isn't too harsh, but I just really hated the construction of this. Anyways, okay, so for one of the mittens, I did that dumb method where you start at the thumb tip on these teeny little needles, and then you have to increase and work in the round, and then you have to attach it to the body of the mitten, and I still don't know how to do that. The instructions didn't make sense at all, and they didn't match up with the chart. And so I just kind of had to jerry-rig my own situation there. And it's definitely a little bit messy because there was just no way to do it. It could definitely be my fault, but I feel like I've done enough patterns, and I tried for a very long time and I still couldn't get it. So I'm gonna have to blame the pattern on this one. And then for the other mitten, I said, oh, I'm not doing that. So by the time I got here, I just cast on more stitches for the thumb, put those on hold, and then knit the rest of the mitten. Then I went back in and then did the thumb growing out of the hand like this, and then did decreases in like a quarter of the amount of time that it took to do this thumb. And this is called the sore thumb technique. I don't know if I said that yet, but sore thumb is where it grows out of the side of the hand rather than like this, like in the front of the hand. And the reason you do sore thumb with this is because there's a beautiful pattern going down the center. So if you had a thumb growing out here, like where you normally do, it would kind of interrupt this pattern going on here. So they wanted it off to the side so that this would be unencumbered and the center of attention. So I can agree with that, but everything else, no. So, okay, so this just looks so nice. This has a duplicate stitch here that I did afterwards. There's some twisted stitches here right at the wrist, and then you do some increases to do this nice bell shape here. And my daughter's biggest complaint last winter was that her mittens she had just like store-bought mittens, and they were really short. They would stop like here, and then you can neither put them inside your coat sleeve or outside of your coat sleeve. So I thought this pattern was really good because they had a nice wide berth here for your winter coat sleeves, so they can just go over your sleeve and you can see the beautiful design. And she was really happy with that design, so that was a success. And actually there's another section of increases that happened here that I didn't do because it was already really wide. It's for a kid, so in the actual pattern it increases even more, and I didn't do that. Now let me talk about the yarn because I just went off on a giant rant about the pattern. So I'm using Hillesvåg Ask, and it's my favorite yarn, Norwegian yarn, non-superwash, sport weight yarn, nice and rustic but very soft. If I steam block this, and it softens up a lot with washing. You could even felt this if you wanted. If it turns out too big, you could felt it. Let me tell you which colors they are in case, because Hillesvåg Ask comes in about 1 million colors. Oh, hello. This is my cat Fozzie. I have another black cat named Winnie. So the colors I use, the gold color is called Ochre Yellow, number 6094. The orange is 6132. The light blue is 6081. The dark blue is called Peasant Blue, and it's number 6083. And then the magenta is called Dark Cyclamen, 6135. And those are all held single. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about this other thing. I had originally started these mittens and I was holding the yarn double to make an adult size. And they turned out so big here. Okay, you can't even tell how ridiculously large they were, but the thumb was like the size of an entire hand. So this is the yarn held double, and then this is the yarn held single. This is really thick and warm though. But then I had to harvest the yarn from this because I was running out of this gold color. The gold color I've used in several other projects and I was running out, so I had to harvest that, but I kept this just to show you if you want to make a ginormous mitten and hold it double, it'll be really, really nice. And I had actually finished almost that entire mitten before I frogged it. And then with all the other problems I had with these mittens, I probably spent about 50% of my time just wasted time that was later frogged. So these are definitely the cursed mittens, but I got there in the end. Oh no, the fringe, another problem. Look at this. This is just totally wrong in the pattern. Okay, so this has a beautiful fringe trim here. And it looks like you purl some stitches and then do this fringe stitch, right? Well, in the book, they say knit 3 rows and then do the fringe stitch. But in the example mittens and in the example picture for the fringe, it's clearly a purl stitch, right? Let me know if I'm missing something there, but that just really threw me off. But I did the knit stitch. I just followed the written instructions exactly, even though my alarm bells were definitely ringing. And then by the time I finished the written directions, it looked completely wrong because you knit the stitches, then you do the fringe stitch, and then you do another row of knitting. And that puts the fringe stitch so far in the back that it's folded back to the wrong side of the mitten. So it's like the fringe is falling into the inside of the mitten, if that makes sense. And that was just wrong. So what I had to do, this is the first mitten. So what I had to do is I folded it to the front like this, kind of. Well, I already did it. I took a video. I folded this fringed edge to the front and sewed it down so it at least had somewhat of that purl appearance, and to have the fringe actually lay flat and not to the wrong side of the mitten. And then for my second mitten, I did what the directions should have said, and I purled all those stitches and then did the fringe stitch, and then it did another row of purling. And this one lays exactly like the example. So I don't know why that's so incorrect in the book, but that is just very frustrating, and I wasted so many hours. So do not get this book unless you want the nice, these knitting charts are very nice, but please ignore all the instructions. You don't know what's going to be right or wrong. And these are the mittens I made. Pretty much the exact colorway because I thought they looked amazing. I don't really like any of the other colorways in the book, but I do have a very particular style. These ones are kind of cool. I don't like purple, but the design at least looks cool. But there's several, maybe, I don't know how many mitten patterns there are, but there are a lot, and the ones I made have no name. They're just on page 118. Now for my younger daughter's mittens, I'm not going to use a pattern at all because I'm not going to get burned again. So what I did was I just took some measurements based off of my older daughter's mitten. My other daughter's 5 and she has regular small 5-year-old hands. So I just put her hand up here and saw how big I wanted her mitten to be, and then calculated how many stitches I wanted for the hand and for the wrist portion. And this one I'm making bottom, I don't know, this way and then ending here, so I get to do decreases instead of increases here everywhere. So it's going to be getting faster and faster as you knit up. And what I did for her pattern is looking a little bit something like this. This is going to be the cuff arm area, and I'm going to do some duplicate stitches in here, probably in the magenta color. So to come up with this pattern, I just flipped through this very nice book called Traditional Scandinavian Knitting by Sheila McGregor. And this just has this is great if you like to design your own things. There are so many different charts here. Just pages and pages of charts. All traditional Scandinavian knitting patterns, motifs. And they even have instructions about how to design your own sweater, different shapes for the neck and sleeves and everything like that. So you could really design your own sweater with all of these motifs. I highly recommend this book. I got this, I like to get old knitting books from Thrift Books and Abe Books. I usually get them for like $4 or $5 each, and since I like to make my own patterns, I find this an invaluable resource. So that's it for the mitten knitting. Now let's get into my next finished objects, which are from this adorable book called Victorian House Cats to Knit. This is by Sarah Elizabeth Zellner. Oh, she spells Sarah with an A, just like me. Okay, and this is completely opposite to the other book. This is written so well. I made 2 of the patterns so far. There's no errors. Everything is very, very clear, but also really perfectly shaped. All of these cats seem to have really well thought out short row shaping to create those nice curves and animalistic features. And the style of this book is also it just has this Victorian aesthetic that I just find very beautiful. I live in a Victorian house built in 1895, and I thought I've got to knit some Victorian cats to go in our house. First one I'll show you is called Prue the Persian. And my younger daughter picked this one out because she thought it was cute, but I thought this was the ugliest cat in the whole book. And I warned her several times that it was not gonna look cute. And that's because I know her toy style very well, and I knew this was gonna have kind of a busted look, and I was totally right. Okay, I tried to get Fozzie in there a little bit. I think you can see him. Anyway, since we're talking about cats, I think that's why he's here. Okay. So, I showed you Prue. So this is Prue the Persian. Dun, da, da, da. This is so hideous. Wait, it kind of looks a little bit better on camera than in person. Okay, this must be a very flattering light. But this is just so funny to me. Because normally I'm used to making toys that are pretty realistic looking, but this one is just so funny looking. So I made this one out of Camarose Snefnug yarn, and I had just knit my younger daughter a little neck warmer thing by PetiteKnit, and I had some more of this yarn, so now she can match her neck warmer to her cat. Something is just very off about this thing. I think the head is too small. I followed the pattern exactly, but theirs looked a lot more wide. Well, whatever. It's definitely not a conversation piece, but like maybe an icebreaker. Oh, comedic relief. Comedic relief whenever you're walking through the house. Okay, so how you start is with this front neck chest area. You knit that as a flat thing down, and then you pick up some stitches for the legs and knit this in the round on double pointed needles, both the legs. Then you pick up stitches here around these shoulder and leg areas, and you knit this whole body lump down like this. And there's a lot of short row shaping happening here for this little back thing, and there are no back legs, so that's good. And then I think you put some scrap yarn here to hold this tail opening on holes, and then you pick up stitches around that scrap yarn hole and then knit a tail later on. This looks so funny. Okay, and then you pick up stitches around the neck and knit the head. And okay, so like I said, I made this for my younger daughter, and when she saw this, she literally started crying because it was so ugly. And then luckily my older daughter said, "Oh my gosh, I just think this is the cutest thing in the world." What she really liked were these little cheeks. See, this has these little cheek lumps that are created by short rows. And so she named this guy Cheekles for the cheeks, and she thought this was the cutest cat she had ever seen. So luckily one of my kids likes this thing. And then something else that would have been really bad is, I think they use like circles of felt to make these eyes. That was definitely gonna make it look even more crazy. So I just used safety eyes. I had the whole head knitted up with no features. It looked very odd. And I had it look at, first I looked at my cat to see what kind of eyes he had. And then I asked this featureless blob which eyes she would like, and she picked these golden eyes. And then I had a spare safety cat nose. So I thought having these little bit more realistic features might help her appearance a little bit. And so I put those in, stuffed the head, made sure to get these cheeks pooching out, and then knit the ears. The ears really helped a lot, make it look a little bit better. And then on the underside of the cheek, I did like a little running stitch like this, and then tightened it up so that the cheeks would pop out a little bit more. I think that helped a little bit. And then this monstrosity was done. Let me know what you think. Is this too hideous or so hideous that it's a little bit cute? Let me know. Okay, so after that, I just love how this book is written. So I wanted to make the cat that I thought was actually cute. And I wanted to do it on my knitting machine because I took a look at the pattern and most of it was knitted flat. So I thought this will be the perfect challenge. Oh, this one is so much cuter than mine. I really messed up by not using a fuzzy yarn. This one's the laying down cat. And well, what really happened was I wanted to make a prototype because I was trying to convert this into a machine knit situation. So I had 2 leftover balls of knitting for olive merino, and I didn't even use up either of those balls. So this used less than maybe half a ball or less of each, oh look, of each color. So this is how mine turned out. Can you see the face? The ears are a little bit weird. Yeah, I think if it was bigger and fuzzier, it would kind of be more flattering to all the imperfections. But the overall effect is good. If it's just sitting there in your house, I think the effect is good. And my younger daughter is much happier with this one. And then you could tack down the arm like this. I think one of them in the picture is looking like this. And I'm so glad I made this on the machine. This took maybe 4 hours or so. And if I did it again, it would take maybe half that time because now I know what to do. So what you do is you start with this, you start with the back and you knit it top down, and there are short row shaping at the sides, and then you knit down to here where the brown ends. Oh, and I wanted to make this striped as well, but anyways, this was a prototype that was going really well, so I just finished it. And I even have the matching knitting for olive mohair, so I'm really upset I didn't include that, but it's okay. I think I'll probably do this again because this was really fun. It's really fun scrap buster. Anyway, so you knit the back piece flat, and you put some scrap yarn here to have some stitches on hold for the tail hole. And then I put the back aside and steam blocked it so it was nice and flat and not curling anymore. And then you knit the front separately. You start at, I think you actually start at the neck here. You start neck and then go down here. And then what you're supposed to do if you're doing this by hand is kind of seam this leg together a little bit and then pick up stitches, or start knitting the leg in the round in white while incorporating the back and front of the leg things, and knit this in the round to the tip. But I did this on the machine, so I knit it flat and then seamed it up together at the end. And there's a little bit of short row shaping here for the heel, which is just a nice realistic touch there. For the tail, good thing I did this on the knitting machine because this tail was 80 rows long. And that would have been so annoying to knit very few stitches in the round like that. Would not like that. Then you knit the arms, and you pick up stitches when you're, okay, so you seam it up the side seam but leave a little hole here, and then you pick up stitches around the armhole and knit that in the round to the tip of the hand. But I did that flat as well on the machine, then seamed it up together, and I made sure to have it the seam in the back so you wouldn't see it as much. But if I had used mohair, you wouldn't have seen that at all. Then for the head, you pick up stitches around the neck for the front and the back. Is that what I did? No, sorry. It's not knit in the round. So you pick up stitches in white and you make this kind of decreased triangle shape. And then separately, you pick up stitches at the neck for the back, and you do one big thing that splits into here. And then you seam it up into this nice triangle shape. And then when you're seaming up this head area, there's a little bit of hole left for you to pick up stitches for the ear and knit that in the round. But I did that net flat as well, and then did my best to seam it up. It's a little bit wonky, but it's okay. And then this one has a sleeping face and a little embroidered pink nose. I think that's it. To make it look cute, you have to make sure not to overstuff your toys. That's my #1 toy knitting tip. So my knitting machine is called the Silver Reed SK280, and it's a standard gauge knitting machine, which means it likes to knit lace weight, fingering weight, sport weight yarns, and occasionally thicker yarns if you thread it through every other needle, so skipping a needle. And for this project, I used a tension 6, and then when I did hand knitting to try to match the gauge, it was matching a 2.25 millimeter hand knitting needle. Just to give you an idea of how tight this gauge is. If you wanted a teeny cat like this, you'd probably want 2.25 or 2.5 millimeter needle. I finally finished talking about all my finished objects, and now I can start talking about, I only have one whip right now. Oh no, I've got that other mitten whip. Whoops. Okay, well this is another whip. And since it's October, it's Socktober, and for about a year now I was planning to try my first sock this October, and so I've started it. I think the reason why I hadn't started sock knitting in the past, well, first of all, because you have to make 2 of them, but also I just couldn't find a pattern that really spoke to me until I saw this. So the pattern I'm doing is called the Kurdish Socks by Vicky Square, and this is based on a pair of socks that a woman named Barb Sobkowiak purchased in northern Iraq in 1991. And then I guess this knitwear designer named Vicky Square was asked to try to make a sock pattern based on those socks she purchased. And I think this is really cool. So one thing about this type of sock and some other sock patterns that I've seen from Eastern Europe or the Middle East, is that they're kind of knit like when they're finished and you look at them, you're able to look at them flat, like head on, top down. Whereas the socks I normally wear, you kind of view them from the side like this. So I don't know, I just thought that was pretty cool. So anyways, this was clearly a toe up construction. So I hardly know anything about sock knitting, so I'll just try my best. And I started this with you start by making a teeny square on one needle, then you pick up stitches around the square so that you're able to start knitting it in the round. And then unfortunately you have to make increases I think every single row until you get about here, and then you can just go to town knitting bottom up. This is a beautiful little colorwork pattern, and I did duplicate stitches here for the red. And then up here is kind of a little twisted braid colorwork chart. And then now the colorwork is all finished, and it's just this beautiful pattern that has a braid here and then another type of twisted stitch zigzag situation. And then on either side is a 2-stitch welt. And I don't really know what welt means, but it just makes this really thick raised edge here at either side. And I'm assuming it's some type of reinforced stitch. So maybe the side of socks is subject to wear or stress in such a way that that area of the sock might get ripped first. So if you know more about socks than me, let me know if that is the purpose of this thickened, reinforced welt type of situation on the side. I would really like to know. And then the back of the sock is just plain stock, or the bottom of the sock is plain stockinette. So you have a little bit of easy stuff and a little bit of interesting stuff here at the front. And the yarn I'm using for this is fingering weight yarn and a 2.25 millimeter needle. But the yarn I'm using is some yarn I got in Barcelona from the yarn shop called La La Nalu, and it's their Nadir base, which is a fingering weight merino, Spanish merino yarn. And it's a beautiful white color and very, very tightly spun. And I chose this because the stitch definition on this is incredible. It's a very rough merino, so it's not itchy, but it's not soft and smooth. It has like a rough feel to it, which is, I find, very interesting. And then the black I'm using is Hillesvåg Vilje, and it's a fingering weight lamb's wool, non-superwash wool yarn, and I just got their black color. And then the red is the Rambler yarn by the Woolly Thistle, and this is their color Trillium. And the Rambler yarn, as you know, I've talked about a million times, is an all-natural sock base yarn. So it's a 3-ply, very tightly twisted yarn that you can use for socks. So here are all the yarns together. So maybe you can see the texture of them a little bit. They're all very, very similar. Tightly, I guess the Hillesvåg Vilje is probably the most fuzzy feeling to it, and then these two are very tightly spun and have a very sturdy, rough, not rough, but you know what I mean, rougher feel rather than fuzzy. I don't know if I can describe things. So I've just been plugging away at this, and I already don't know if I want to make another one. So my husband came up with a really good idea. Oh, so the whole reason I'm making these is I want these socks, I don't want to wear these outside. I'd be very scared to ruin them. So our house gets really cold in the winter because it's old and insulated poorly, and I have really cold feet. So I am planning to use these as my sleeping socks. And since these are not going to be public socks, my husband said, oh, why don't you just make the other sock as a different pattern? And I said, yes, that is a genius idea. So I'm going to make one like this. And then for my next sock, I think I want to try making a Turkish sock. I've got another sock pattern book from other socks from countries that are probably underrepresented in the online knitting community. And I do love to explore yarn and patterns from all around the world. So I'd love to try my hand at a Turkish sock. I think that'd be really cool. And another idea I really wanted to try was twined knitting. You know, where you have 2 strands of yarn, but they're in the same color, and then every stitch you twist one around itself. Every single stitch you make a twist, and that makes a very sturdy sock yarn, but you can also do really cool patterns in that twined knitting, or 2-end knitting, they call it, style. So yeah, lots to explore there in sock knitting, and so that has gotten me excited to try socks. Okay, the last item I have to show you today is my sewed item that I finished. This is nothing new or special if you've seen my other sewing projects on this channel. This is another pair of Florence pants by Elizabeth Suzanne. And when I was looking at fall inspiration pictures on Pinterest, it seems like a lot of the ones I liked had a beautiful brown and white gingham type of fabric as their pants. And so I decided to make my own pair. I've made the Florence pants by Elizabeth Suzanne maybe 20 times now, and they just work for me. I already have the pattern, already have it cut out, so there's really no reason for me to try a new pair of pants. The size I make is in between the size medium and large. I just cut somewhat in between those two sizes. And for me, that gives a nice wide leg and plenty of room at the waist to cinch in. When there's not enough material getting cinched in by the elastic at the waist, it'll look too much like this. And I think when it's like this, it looks really cool. And then I also add pockets to the side seam. I don't think there's pockets in the original pattern, but I have a free pocket pattern and sewing tutorial that I can link you to. It's not mine, it's another woman that I forgot her name, but she has a free pocket pattern and a free tutorial on YouTube about how to put this pocket in to the Florence, the exact Florence pants pattern itself, which I find very useful. I've made it so many times I don't need to follow her instructions anymore. And then I wanted the Florence pants are a little bit cropped, and so for fall and winter I wanted a very long pant, so I extended the length of the pattern by I think 4 inches, and then to save fabric I just did a very small 1-inch hem there. The fabric I used for this is some more Kala cotton, and that is sold by the website called Honda Textiles, and they get their Kala cotton from India, and it's hand-dyed, hand-spun cotton and hand-woven fabric, and it's just beautiful. It's so soft. I think it's warm enough for winter, you know, if you layer it with sweaters, but the cotton is cool enough for winter as well, and it doesn't wrinkle as much as linen, so for me it's a great alternative to linen that's slightly warmer and slightly more formal. I wouldn't say this is formal, but it doesn't have that wrinkled look, that casual linen look. And I really wanted this colorway at least a year ago, and they were sold out. And so with all the tariffs from Indian imports raising to 50%, I thought maybe she's never going to restock this beautiful fabric again, so I bought plenty to make these pants, and I have 0 regrets. This goes with everything in my wardrobe. I wear a lot of neutrals, greens, pinks, red. I think that goes with all the different fall colors, or just white, black, whatever, brown. So I don't have much to say about those because I've made it a million times before, and it's a very simple pattern. If you're new to sewing, I highly recommend Elizabeth Suzanne's patterns. Can you see Fozzie's like under the bed in this lump right here? I guess he's a little cold even though it's like 80 degrees out. And that wraps up all the projects that I have to share with you today. I hope you like this episode. Let me know what you're knitting on for fall. I kind of don't have any fresh plans for sweaters at the moment. Normally I'm always knitting on a sweater project, but now I'm kind of wondering what I should knit next. I don't think I'm going to make a Christmas sweater because I already knit my ultimate Christmas sweater last year and I want to wear that one again. So I think if I don't have to do that, then I think kind of the sky is the limit. I was kind of thinking that I don't have any pure white sweaters, and white is something I wear a lot, and it's very weird to me that I haven't made any white sweaters. I have some that are kind of have a lightish background, but it's color work. But for example, I think these pants would look really good with just a simple white sweater on top, and I don't have anything like that. So I think maybe I will do that, or maybe a deep red sweater, or green, of course, my favorite color. So let me know what you're working on. I'm looking for sweater inspiration right now, and I hope you're working on something awesome. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support my channel, you could give it a thumbs up or hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much again for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye!